This is Power Hour with Gabriella Power.
Hello and welcome to Power Hour. I'm Gabriella Power. Thank you for joining us. US President Donald Trump has hosted Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese at the White House, and the President had this message to the people of Australia.
President Trump, sir, your message to the people of Australia. I love that. What do you hope to accomplish today with the Prime Minister?
A lot. Great things. Thank you very much. We had to get a lot done.
Thank you, President Trump. We love you too, except the ones, of course, with TDS. And sadly for us, that happens to include our ambassador to the United States, Kevin Rudd, who has been totally humiliated on the world stage when Donald Trump was reminded that Kevin Rudd has a history of publicly trashing the US president.
President, there's been concern in Australia that it's taken 9 months to get this meeting. Have you had any concerns with this administration, with its stance on Palestine, climate change, or even things the ambassador said about you in the past, the Australian ambassador?
I don't know anything about him. I mean, if he said bad, then maybe he'll like to apologize. I really don't know. Did an ambassador say something bad about me? Don't tell me. I don't know. Where is he? Is he still working for you?
Yeah.
You said bad?
Raises his hand.
Before I took this position, Mr. President.
I don't like you either. I don't, and I probably never will. Go ahead.
And I probably never will. FAFO. Donald Trump totally destroyed Kevin Rudd for the world to see. And Kevin Rudd has become a global laughingstock. Even Republicans are making jokes about how he's been able to keep his job.
What a very successful meeting in the White House yesterday. I really commend you, and to the ambassador, I'm glad you're still gainfully employed.
Joining us now is Ami Horowitz, filmmaker and commentator. Ami, it's wonderful to see you again. You're in Australia. Welcome.
I am. And by the way, talk about what kind of loyal soldier I am. I literally just got off a 25-hour trip to get from New York to here, and I came right to the hotel so I could be on with you this morning.
Oh, we really appreciate it. Yes, it is certainly a long flight. So you're in Australia and our Prime Minister is over in the United States, and I really am keen to talk to you about this meeting that's been held between our Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, and of course, US President Donald Trump. But the meeting, which was, it is being hailed a big success. It's been overshadowed by what is actually making headlines around the world right now, and that is, of course, our TDS-suffering ambassador, Kevin Rudd. And there are plenty of concerns, and there's a big conversation happening right now here in Australia as to whether he should be keeping his job after copying that embarrassing spray from Donald Trump. So we've heard from former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer. He said that Kevin Rudd, he's a joke, he's ineffective. And it's been really interesting to see the reaction from people all around the world. I mean, over in the UK, Piers Morgan wrote on X, few more poisonous or useless people in public life than Kevin Rudd. I mean, it's pretty savage. Ami, what's your assessment, your take on what went down at the White House yesterday?
Look, it's the same thing. You look across the capitals of the world, when they come to the White House, you hear the same thing, right? You see, I call it the 180 Club, right? All these foreign diplomats, all these foreign leaders who have changed their tune on Donald Trump over the last few months, right? Look, you look at Merz, and you look at Keir Starmer of England, right? Merz of Germany, and Mark Carney of Canada. They have all attacked Donald Trump, and now in face of the success, his foreign policy successes, one after the other, after the other, after the other, trade successes, they all understand how this works, and that they're all changing their tune in support of Donald Trump. So it's just, look, Prime Minister Albanese, join the 180 Club because you're in really good company. And by the way, look, you also have to understand what's happening in your own neck of the woods, right? The predations of China with Australia are happening over and over again. You recently had conflict with the Air Force, the Chinese Air Force, the Australian Air Force. You guys need submarines. These are all important geopolitical issues that your Prime Minister has to come to grips with. And when it comes to coming to the U.S., yes, you have to kiss the ring.
Yeah, 100%. We're seeing that happen right now. The 180 Club, it's taken them quite a long time to get there, but we're finally here. But let's talk about what's happening in the US. And the Trump administration is on track to break a record of the number of deportations being carried out. So since Trump's return to office in January, the administration has deported over 500,000 illegals, more than 1.6 million have self-deported, and almost 500,000 have been arrested. Army, it certainly looks like that's not going to be slowing down anytime soon. And, Donald Trump is really delivering on one of his promises here.
This is what the American people elected him for. This is one of the main reasons why they wanted him in office, is because they wanted to stop the illegal invasion into this country. That's exactly what he did. Right? You're talking about a 97% decrease in people across the border. Not 9.7, 97. Think about that number, how massive it is. And look, there was a quote with the administration that said, we need to deport illegals so we can stop them from coming across the border. We want to disincentivize them. Was that Donald Trump? No, that was actually Barack Obama. But now this president has a long way to actually catch up with the deporter-in-chief, Barack Obama, who got rid of nearly 3 million illegals. I hope Donald Trump is going to beat that record. He's on his way. But it just goes to show this is not necessarily, doesn't have to be a political issue, right? It doesn't have to be Republican, Democrats. People care, left or right, that they're not having illegal aliens streaming across the border with no vetting process. That's why they elected President Trump, and he is fulfilling his promise.
100%. I want to talk to you about what's been happening in Portland. Now, you've spent plenty of time there. I've seen you take to the streets in Portland, but there has been chaos over the weekend, again outside an ICE facility following the No Kings protest. And independent journalists say that these Antifa-like thugs were smashing windows, becoming violent. Let's just take a look. An appeals court has also ruled that Trump can deploy National Guard troops into Portland, a big victory for Donald Trump. But can you talk to us about what it's like after spending a fair bit of time there, seeing what the protests are like that the media calls peaceful?
Yeah, and by the way, just to correct you one thing, you say Antifa-like. No, this is Antifa, right? This is exactly what Antifa is all about. Antifa are violent thugs that are oftentimes armed, and they have no issue at all with deploying violence against a journalist, against a regular person in the street, or against federal officers or police officers. This is what we're dealing with. They have weaponized the left's rhetoric, and they are using it literally as weapons. When I went, nothing has changed. You see that footage, and it looks like you're in some South American dictatorship, right? You think that's what's going on. This is what's happening here because you have people in the streets trying to overthrow the government. They are attacking federal facilities with weapons, with fire bombs. Nothing's changed. When I was there a number of years ago, the same image, what you just showed me could have been when I was there. And by the way, I'll be going back there, obviously, because this is the tip of the sword in terms of how we're dealing with hard left radicalism. When it comes to a little more nuanced approach, look, when it comes to bringing in federal troops, right, the National Guard, and I've been saying this over and over again, I have two minds. There is a time for it, right? For example, when the LA riots were happening, when they're attacking federal facilities, like they are in Portland, that is an absolute credible need to use federal intervention to stop violence against federal buildings. I'm not so for it when it comes to policing outside of Washington, D.C. D.C. is a separate issue because it's literally part of the federal government because it's just a district, not a state or in this country. Not such a fan of using it in blue cities like Chicago unless there's a credible threat against federal buildings like they are in Portland. Then by all means, let's have at it.
Okay. Let's talk about New York City, where you live, and a new poll has indicated that there could be trouble for Zohran Mamdani if Republican Curtis Sliwa drops out. Now, the report by Gotham Polling found that if Sliwa drops out, around 44% of New Yorkers would vote for Mamdani, and around 40% would vote for Andrew Cuomo. So that's just a margin of error, and sorry, I should say, with a margin of error of 4 points, that puts Cuomo with a striking distance. But looking at the betting markets, Polymarket has Mamdani a 93% chance of becoming mayor after next month's election. Donald Trump was asked about this today.
Mr. President, a new poll shows that if Curtis Sliwa dropped out of the New York mayoral race, then Andrew Cuomo would only trail Mamdani by 4 points. Would you call Curtis Sliwa to drop out of the race so that can happen?
Well, I looked at the polls, and looks like we're going to have a communist as the mayor of New York. It'll be very interesting. But here's the good news. He's got to go through the White House. Everything goes through the White House, at least this White House it does. And we'll have to see what happens. But if he dropped out, he's not going to win. And not looking too good for Cuomo either. But maybe, I don't know, if he dropped out, maybe Cuomo would have a little bit of a chance, but not much. Because it looks like the lead is, it's not a great lead, but it's big enough that he should be able to win. So, I don't know that I want to get involved. It's really a question of, would I rather have a Democrat or a communist? And I would rather have a Democrat than a communist.
The president went on to say that it's sad to see what's happening in New York, and said that with a communist in charge, if you go back thousands of years, you'll find out that it has never worked. I mean, Ami, you live in New York City. How are you feeling about what's likely to happen with Mamdani, potentially being elected as mayor?
I'm not feeling great, Gabriella. I'm not feeling great, right? Look, the betting market, I know you showed the crypto market there in terms of their betting. Sounds a little high to me. The wise guys in Vegas have between 75 and 80%, which was growing from week over week in about last month. But look, Curtis Sliwa does not seem to be dropping out. I continue getting texts, 4 or 5 texts a day from the Sliwa people telling me to vote. And I respond, I'm sure it goes to the ether, saying, please drop out, please drop out, please drop out. He has a chance. Look, if he drops out, Mamdani has a chance to lose. Look, I never thought I'd say this in my life, but old people in New York, I'm kind of hoping for them to come through, because the vast majority of undecideds who are over 50 are going to break toward Cuomo. So if that could be a look, because it would be super tight, like you said, right? It's going to be within the margin of error if Sliwa drops out. So I think it's vital that Sliwa drops out to give Cuomo a shot. And also, frankly, the black vote has got to come out, right? The black vote went all to Cuomo in the primary, right? They shut out Mamdani. So I'm hoping the black and Hispanic vote will also turn out, because they're also going to lead toward Cuomo. And the last point I'll make on this, the president alluded to it, but this is really important. Nearly $100 billion of New York's annual budget comes from D.C., okay? And that goes through the president. Okay, that's almost 40% of the total annual budget of New York. And New York is having a lot of fiscal issues. We can't pay our bills, right? We're in trouble. They're raising the prices of buses and of subways because we can't foot the bill. If you take a 30% or 40% number down from that, New York's in real trouble. So yeah, he better make the president is putting his finger on the thing here, because he understands it goes through DC.
So finally, before I get to what's happening in the Middle East, Army, Joe Rogan's blasted Gavin Newsom for his social media strategy, labelling it stupid, and also taking aim at Gavin Newsom for the way he governs California. Listen to this.
Yeah, when is he coming on? He's talking some on Twitter.
I know, it's like, you think that's going to work? Like, that's so stupid. Like, this is such a bad look. Yeah. It's such a bad choice.
There's a little desperation in it.
But it's just stupid. It's like, this is a bad strategy. Like, I probably would have had him on.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, nah, what are you doing?
There is a fun version where you just do it and cook them,
He'll cook himself.
I mean, that seems to be
all you have to
happening.
do is just ask him questions.
Yeah, it's like, why are people leaving?
Well, why do you say this thing all the time where you rattle off all the good things about California? When anybody says something bad about California, it's like, #1 in Fortune 500 companies, #1 in higher education, #1. It was all that before you were there. It was all that forever. It's because the weather's perfect, man. It has nothing to do with you.
But Army, Gavin Newsom has gained ground on Vice President JD Vance in a new hypothetical poll of the 2028 presidential race. According to polling by Emerson College, if the two are against each other in the next election cycle, 46% would support JD Vance and 45% would support Gavin Newsom. I mean, who are the 45%? So, look, Joe Rogan really taking aim at Gavin Newsom's social media strategy there. I agree with him. I think it's absolutely bizarre, and I would suggest that it's not helping him, but maybe it is, Army.
Look, I've said this before. I've said this for a while. Don't sleep on Gavin Newsom. He didn't go on Joe Rogan, but he has a history of going on a lot of shows that are not a comfortable spot for him. Actually, I give him credit for that. And he cosplays well as a normal Democrat. Okay, but that's what it is. It is cosplaying. He is more on the left, obviously, than the center. And you can see that the policies in California. But he does a really, really good job of pretending to be moderate. And look, before he can go, that poll against JD Vance is great, but he's got to win the nomination first. And the person who is consistently in the top 5 more than any other politician is, wait for it, it's Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris didn't run for governor of California because she is biding her time, unbelievably thinking she has another bite at the apple. And she is polling well. I don't think she'll win it, but she currently is polling well. And Gavin Newsom is right up there. As so is AOC, frankly, and other radicals. So I think that it's going to be fascinating. Gavin Newsom, again, I talked about how many texts I get from Curtis Lewa. I get 2 or 3 emails a day from Gavin Newsom, his campaigns. They're pushing hard. They're going after me, trying to get me to support him. They're trying something. So it's going to be look. This race is going to be absolutely fascinating. Not just the general, but frankly, I think the Democratic nomination process is going to be even more fascinating because the soul of the Democratic Party is at stake, frankly.
Absolutely. No, it is going to be fascinating to watch. Kamala Harris, well, she's certainly getting headlines again as she's on her book tour or media blitz promoting her new book, 107 Days, about the world's worst election campaign. She claims it's the shortest, of course, and that's why she didn't win, according to Kamala Harris. But she's also coming to Australia, Army. I don't know how many of us are too excited about that, but you can tell that she's gearing up for another potential run. Now, we mentioned, of course, JD Vance, and he is in Israel at the moment. He's attempting to stabilise the first phase of the Gaza ceasefire and hoping to advance the Gaza talks into the second phase of the deal, which of course includes disarming Hamas and the withdrawal of Israeli forces from the Strip. Now, Donald Trump has said that multiple Middle Eastern nations are on standby to wipe out Hamas if the terror group continues its aggression. He wrote on Truth Social, numerous of our now great allies in the Middle East and areas surrounding the Middle East have explicitly and strongly, with the great enthusiasm, informed me that they would welcome the opportunity at my request to go into Gaza with a heavy force and straighten out Hamas if Hamas continues to act badly in violation of their agreement with us. The love and spirit for the Middle East has not been seen like this in 1,000 years. It is a beautiful thing to behold. I told these countries and Israel, not yet. There is still hope that Hamas will do what is right. If they do not, an end to Hamas will be fast, furious, and brutal. Army, what do you see happening here? Is it likely that Donald Trump will be calling on those now great allies to take out Hamas, or how do you see this playing out?
Now, look, there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, I'll start with the good stuff. When you look, the Middle East has been remade by this president, okay? With a brief 4-year hiatus in between, a failure. You had the first 4 years and the Abraham Accords, or he says the Abraham Accords, an unbelievable game changer in terms of the strategic map of the Middle East, right? You have enemies for generations coming to peace with Israel. And then on the other side of his this last 9 months of this presidency, obviously you saw the hopefully will be the end of the Gaza war with Israel. And to see all of these guys who were enemies of not just, by the way, not just of Israel, they're also closet enemies of the United States, coming together and say, we want to work with you to make sure Hamas is no longer a power force in the Levant is incredible. It truly, truly is. The problem is there is no, look, when Bibi set out among his goals for this Gaza war, and one of them was the destruction of Hamas, I knew it was a mistake going in. Hamas is not, you just can't go in and kill, 50,000 Hamas people and all of a sudden Hamas is gone. It's an ideology as much as it is a political force and a terrorist force, right? And if you go, and I did recently, if you go to the West Bank, right, not in Gaza, and you ask anybody under 50 who you support, without just about every single person under 50, every single one, I asked that they support Hamas, right? That even though they saw the destruction of Gaza because of the support of Hamas and what Hamas has caused the Gazans, they still support them. And there was an election today, and there won't be, right? Because the PLO doesn't want that to happen. Hamas would win without a question. So it's not so easy just to wipe them out. I hesitate to use that as a goal because it's a kind of an unachievable goal, to be honest.
Okay, Ami Horowitz, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you in Australia.
It's my pleasure.
It's time for Media Meltdowns, and after spending years blatantly lying to the American people, covering up Joe Biden's obvious and very rapid cognitive decline, Biden's ex-press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, is on a media blitz promoting her new book, which is about trashing the Democratic Party so much that she's now encouraging Americans to abandon the party altogether. Before we get into her disastrous media appearances, here's a quick reminder of just how hopeless she was as Biden's press secretary.
2 days since somebody allegedly tried to kill Donald Trump again. And you're here at the podium in the White House briefing room calling him a threat. How many more assassination attempts on Donald Trump until the president and the vice president and you pick a different word to describe Trump other than threat?
Peter, if anything from this administration, I actually completely disagree with the premise of your question, the question that you're asking. It is also incredibly dangerous in the way that you're asking it.
This is the woman who gaslit reporters, gaslit millions of Americans, gaslit the world, telling us that Joe Biden's mental acuity was totally fine and that Joe Biden wouldn't be pardoning Hunter Biden. Joe Biden dropping out of the race then had nothing to do with his health. She also told us again and again that Republicans and Donald Trump, that they were a threat to democracy. And now she wants you to buy her book about why the Democrats suck. What is it with all these people who protected Joe Biden for years, all of a sudden profiting off lying to the American people? I mean, Jake Tapper, KJP, it is shameless. So Karine Jean-Pierre has had a makeover and she appeared on the Book Walk podcast where she attempted to rewrite history, claiming that Joe Biden, well, he always fronted up to the press.
He talked way less to the press than Donald Trump does. Way less. And he wasn't out there at all. He wasn't good off the cuff. He wasn't doing press conferences. Let's just be real. Like, he didn't do paid events.
But Tim, that's not true. Tim, you're conflating all of it. That's what you're doing. No, you're telling me he didn't talk well about it. Then you're telling me he didn't talk at all.
He didn't do either. He didn't talk very often, and when he did, it wasn't very good. He sounded very old.
Maybe you weren't paying attention to what we were doing at the White House. But
I paid attention. I'm with you on the policies. I'm talking about his performance.
The president spoke to the American people a couple times a week. He traveled and did domestic travel and talked directly to the American people.
I mean, it is just such a reminder of how much better it is now that we actually know who is running the country. It's not, staff using an auto pen, but actually the person that Americans elected. And it wasn't all that long ago that Karine Jean-Pierre was among those telling us that Joe Biden would be fine to stay in office until 2028. And she was asked about this today.
Like, the notion that this person was up for being president to 2028 was up for the communications responsibility of this job and fighting. No, well, if he won again, he would have to have been president all the way till 2028. I think that's an absurd thing to suggest that he could have been president. Do you think he could have been president in 2028?
I I can't speak to that. Here's what I.
Well, obviously no. But so was he up for it though? I guess. I could just big like he didn't have the vigor for this fight.
Let me. We have to rewind the tape a little bit and not be revisionist historians here, because no. But
yeah, no comment to that question. But KJP also appeared on CBS, where she spent a lot of time, or she said that she spent a lot of time with the former president, but deliberately tried to distance herself from Biden's disastrous debate.
The apparent decline of Joe Biden, you said you're a member of the inner circle and you never saw the decline. And after that, I wrote, how? Yep. You even write, Karine, that you were on the plane with him going to the debate and you didn't see anything.
Well, when we were on the Air Force One going to the debate, you got to remember his campaign people were on the team, his family was on the team. I actually was one of those rare trips that I didn't really see him until after the debate, even though I was on the plane.
Naming everyone else, but she claims that day she was on the same plane but didn't actually see Joe Biden that day. But she was, of course, pressed on Biden's mental acuity.
I had a role that saw him practically every day and traveled with him.
And you saw nothing.
For more than 95%. We've always said, we're not going to say, oh, he didn't age. He aged. And he poked fun at it. We always owned up. And with age comes what happens when you get older.
Which is?
But when we talk about the mental acuity, and again, I take this very, very seriously. Yeah. I never saw anyone who wasn't there. I saw someone who was always engaged. I saw someone who understood policy, pushed us on the policy.
Age is what happens when you get older. Okay, KJP is on a revenge tour, and this is her way of getting people to buy her book. Look, there is something that Joe Biden mastered during his presidency that even Donald Trump has not been able to do, and that is mastering the art of doing nothing. Joe Biden spent more time on vacation than any other president in modern history. According to RNC data, he spent 577 days on vacation over his 4-year term. That is nearly 40% of the time. What an achievement, Joe Biden, something that even President Trump admires.
What does that mean?
Do you like to visit Argentina soon?
I do. I would love to. I'm just a little busy. I'd love to go to Argentina. I'd like to be like Biden. I'd like to go to the beach. You know, my legs are not quite as thin as his. My legs are slightly heavier. My arms are slightly larger. My body is a little bit larger than his. I'm not sure it would be appreciated on the beach, but I'm not going to take a chance. You won't see me in a bathing suit. You won't see in a bathing suit sitting on a beach in Argentina, falling down, not being able to lift a 3-ounce chair, meant for old people to lift, and he couldn't lift it, so we had a problem. He spent too much time on a beach. Somebody told him that he looked good in a bathing suit.
Joining us now is CJ Pearson, RNC Youth Advisory Council co-chair. CJ, great to see you again. Let's talk about KJP on her media blitz, reminding all of us of just how bad things really were under the Biden administration. Now, she, of course, has been attacking the Democrat Party. Now she's an independent. But my issue is that she was the one spending years and years lying to the American people, covering up Joe Biden's decline. And now she wants those people to go out there and spend their hard-earned dollars on buying her BS book. I mean, what's your reaction?
You know, you're exactly right. And thank you so much again for having me. I got to say that not much has obviously changed with Karine Jean-Pierre. She continues to show that if her mouth is moving, that she is most undoubtedly lying, whether or not it's, you know, on a book tour, behind a White House podium. She actually has no relationship with the truth whatsoever. To sit here and continue to gaslight the American people about the mental acuity of President Biden, when we all saw exactly what happened, his downward spiral throughout his term, and to make us seem as if, or make us feel as if, that our eyes are lying to us, our ears are lying to us, is just disrespectful at this point. The American people know exactly who Joe Biden is, and they know who he wasn't, and what he wasn't was all there, period.
100%. Now, just like Kamala Harris, KJP is taking no accountability. Now, Kamala Harris is still on her media blitz and promoting her book, and she had a meltdown while she was on stage and she happened to get heckled. Watch this.
Soon enough. And you know, I sometimes think about,
You know what? I am not President of the United States. You want to go to the White House and talk to him? Then go on and do that.
CJ, it's always a different accent. You never know which one's going to come out.
Always over an accent. I got to tell you, I've been watching this media tour, and Kamala Harris has found a way to blame everyone under the sun for her loss, but the actual real culprit. She hasn't blamed Jose Cuervo. She hasn't blamed Tito. She hasn't blamed Jack Daniel. And I think that she should actually be, putting her ire on those fronts, right? Here's the deal. Kamala Harris, the American people rejected her because they realized that she actually had no competence whatsoever. She would be a continuation of the same failed Biden agenda the American people had grown tired of. And so, she continues to demonstrate that. And all I'm hoping for at the end of this tour is that she has deluded herself enough to the point where she thinks that she should run again. Because if she runs again, we will have a President J.D. Vance or we'll have a President Marco Rubio, one of the two. And it will be guaranteed. So I'm begging Kamala Harris, if she's watching Sky News Australia right now, please run for president.
Yeah, I think a lot of Republicans are hoping that she's going to run. They're among those, like her staff, all telling her, please do it. Now, I want to talk to you about Hunter Biden in just a moment, but quickly let's go to the UK, where the Oxford Debating Society has voted to oust its incoming president, and this is after he celebrated the murder of Charlie Kirk. Now, more than the required, two-thirds of voters supported the no confidence measure against the president-elect. And let's just look at who this guy is, because old vision has surfaced where he essentially called for the right to be taken out by any means necessary. Look at this.
To effectively create change in the world we desire. And side prop will argue that at times there is simply nothing else that can be required other than violent retaliation. And this is a view I wholeheartedly agree with. The view that some institutions are too broken, too regressive, too oppressive to be reformed. Like cancers of our society, they must and they should be taken down by any means necessary.
CJ, can I get your reaction that he's now been voted out?
Well, thank God for these, students and these young people actually showing some leadership and holding him accountable. But I got to tell you that this is disgusting, and these videos, while they may be news to us, they weren't news to the people that elected them. And for them to have voted him in, knowing that he had harbored these opinions and these thoughts about political violence in his country across the world is disgusting, and an indictment upon the higher education system, not just here in the U.S., because of course he's over there in the U.K., but really around the world. This virus has spread internationally now. But what I'll say about this is that oftentimes the reason I push back so forcefully when those on the left say this is a both sides issue, you don't hear people on the right talking like this, right? Charlie Kirk, you want to say that, sometimes violence is the only response to something that's oppressive. What was oppressive about anything that Charlie Kirk ever did? Was it oppressive or violent? He believed there were only two genders. Was it oppressive or violent? He believed that America was a great country worthy of being defended. Was it oppressive or violent that he believed that America's next generation should be able to have a free discourse of ideas in accordance with the free speech ideals that America is built upon? What was oppressive about that? What was violent about that? I will tell you what was oppressive is putting a bullet into the neck of your political opponent because he hurt your feelings. That is the type of evil that those on the left are defending here in this country today. That is the type of evil that those across the world are defending on the left here today. And so, no, you don't get to both sides me on this issue anymore. The violence in this in this country right now, as it relates to politics, the bullets are coming from left to right. They're not coming from both sides.
Well said, CJ. Okay, Hunter Biden, he's opened up about receiving a pardon from his dad. And in the world's most predictable statement, he's pointing the finger at Donald Trump. Not himself, not his dad, Joe Biden, but it's Donald Trump's fault. In an interview with Tommy Christopher, he said that his dad only pardoned him because Donald Trump was elected president, and his dad would not have done so under normal circumstances. He said that Donald Trump went and changed everything, and I quote, "Don't think that I need to make much of an argument about why it changed everything." I mean, CJ, of course he's going to point the finger at Donald Trump. It's such a joke.
You're exactly right. It's just plain silly. But I got to tell you, maybe we should give credit where it's due. I will actually applaud Hunter Biden for his self-awareness there. He says that he recognizes how privileged he is. And he actually is very, very privileged. He's the most privileged crackhead in America. Because only when you were the president's son would you have received the type of pardon that he did. Only if you're the president's son would you be given kind of a get-out-of-jail-free card in this case, because we know indisputably that he had broken the law. It was true. It was proven. It was Biden's DOJ that pursued those charges against him. However, what we have since seen is that many of the charges that were, pursued against President Trump and many of his conservative allies were not founded on much of anything. Simply just it was a political wind shot. It was a political agenda that actually, led to these charges being pursued and those prosecutions being done. And so Hunter Biden, he's just the gift that keeps on giving. I want him to keep talking. Please do. In the same way that I want Kamala Harris to keep talking, I want Hunter Biden to keep talking, because every time he opens his mouth, we're reminded of just how feckless and just how much disregard Joe Biden showed towards the law every single day. They want to say, oh, President Trump is destroying all these norms. Imagine if Donald Trump would have pardoned Don Jr. today. He would be impeached tomorrow.
It's also been revealed that Hunter Biden was furious when Barack Obama led Joe Biden off a stage during a major fundraising event last year. So according to this new book by ABC News' Jonathan Karl, and then according to reports by Axios, that Hunter Biden told Jonathan Karl that decision by Barack Obama to really kind of put his arm around Joe Biden and walk him off the stage so publicly that quote really, really pissed me off. That is what Hunter Biden said. And of course it would have. I mean, Barack Obama knew exactly what he was doing for the world to see, making Joe Biden look even more frail and useless than he even was.
You're exactly right. And, I think President Obama knew what we all knew and what a lot of folks in the Democrat establishment were refusing to acknowledge and admit. And I think President Obama wanted to do what a lot of Democrats were unwilling to do at that time, at that juncture of the race, and try to get Joe Biden to come to his senses and get out of the race before they lost, which would prove to be inevitable, right? But, I understand why he's so frustrated with President Obama. I got to say that, it's one of the things that I will actually give President Obama credit for, because he decided at that moment that he was no longer going to be complicit in elder abuse, which a lot of people, unfortunately, in the DNC and even in the Biden family, whether it's Jill Biden or Hunter Biden himself, were more than willing to do, because they realized that the moment that President Biden was pushed out of office, their gravy train would stop. Their abuses of power would have to end, because they would finally be held accountable as they are under this president, and thank God for it.
Now, CJ, I've got to play some lefty singing for you. Unfortunately, there has been so much of it on my X feed recently because of these lefties taking to the streets, taking part in these No Kings rallies over the weekends. And what is it with lefties and singing? But here it is.
And when the courts enforce the laws and the guardian goons withdraw, then Americans will take our country back.
Yeah, not a lot of Gen Z people in that crowd. A lot of old people, CJ.
Straight out of the nursing home, it seems. I knew that they would usually go to the nursing home to try to get Democrat votes, but now they're just shipping them to their rallies. It's interesting to see, because for a long time, we were told as Republicans that we were the party of old white guys. Now, I know that you can see me, and I'm clearly not that, but it seems as if they were doing a little bit of projecting here, because it seems as if all of the people that I just saw in that video fit that category of being old and white. But it goes to show that there's a disconnect between reality and what the left oftentimes says. President Trump's Republican Party has become more diverse than ever, not diverse just for the sake of it, but diverse because it's actually a lot of people who are looking, in the Latino community, in the Black community, who are saying, we are sick and tired of being sick and tired. We're tired of being used and abused by a Democrat Party that doesn't give a damn about us, and they're coming to our side. So it's no surprise to me that a lot of these protests are looking a lot older and a lot whiter. It's probably a lot of the same people that were protesting Vietnam back in the day who are now coming out for their second tour of duty against President Trump.
Just finally, construction is underway for the big, beautiful ballroom at the White House, something that is costing taxpayers $0. Thank you, President Trump. Yet Hillary Clinton is making a big issue out of it. She posted on X saying, it's not your house, it's not his house, rather, taking aim at Donald Trump, saying it's your house and he's destroying it. Now, CJ, I don't think adding A privately funded $200 million ballroom to the White House is what I would call destroying it. What are your thoughts?
You're exactly right. I would not call it destroying the White House, and I certainly wouldn't call it defiling the White House as her husband did when he was president, right? So I think that she should probably sit this one out. It'd be a wise decision for her to do. As you pointed out, no taxpayer dollars are being used to even construct this ballroom. This is being funded by the president himself and some, generous, patriotic donors who want to, beautify, the symbol of our country, and good for them. That's their prerogative. This is a free country. They can use their money to do whatever they please. And of course, this is not unprecedented. There are many instances throughout history where first ladies and presidents have made renovations to the White House. Jackie Kennedy made a tremendous amount of, renovations, as did the presidents that followed the burning of the White House. So there were many situations here where the White House has been modified and different presidents have left their mark on the institution and the structure. So I think this is just a lot about nothing. And again, I think Hillary Clinton would probably be wise to sit this one out when you consider the totality of her husband's history in that beloved building.
And I'm looking forward to seeing the ballroom. I think it's going to be grand. It's probably going to be spectacular, seeing as Donald Trump has a lot to do with it. CJ Pearson, RNC Youth Advisory Council co-chair, thanks so much for your time.
We'll see you.
Joining us now is Andrew Eborn, barrister, broadcaster and president of Octopus TV. Andrew Eborn, it's wonderful to see you again.
It's always wonderful to see you, Gabriella.
And what bombshell royal news we had over the weekend that Prince Andrew has now relinquished the Duke of York title following scandal after scandal and, of course, the ongoing fallout from his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein and the release of Virginia Giuffre's memoir. Now, Prince Andrew has, of course, denied all allegations against him, but let's just look at what's been detailed in Virginia Giuffre's memoir. There are, of course, more allegations of abuse, revelations about her encounters with sex offender Jeffrey Epstein and his former girlfriend Ghislaine Maxwell, and it also goes into how Virginia Giuffre really wanted accountability, Andrew.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the biggest theme of this. She wants accountability. 367 pages in total. And it's a gut punch of a memoir. And if she saves one person from silence, then she should be crowned the real queen. That's what she wanted. And she details all sorts of things. She talks about how she first met Ghislaine Maxwell when she was working at Mar-a-Lago as a towel girl, just being paid a few dollars an hour. And basically, Ghislaine said, look, I could offer you a job as a masseuse. Come with me. And she was then introduced to Epstein, and Epstein was naked, apparently. And she said, look, just copy what I do. And she was then abused in that sort of situation. She then also details about the first time that she apparently met Prince Andrew, something Andrew denies, but it was in March 2021. She was woken up and told, today's your lucky day. Today you're going to be Cinderella. You're going to meet a charming prince. Well, charming prince indeed. That was apparently the first time that she met him. They also detail some harrowing examples. She claims that she had sex with Andrew at least 3 times. Andrew obviously denies that, as you say. One of those, however, was in an orgy with 8 other girls. And what Virginia says is that those girls couldn't speak very good English. Epstein said it was good because they're easier to control, basically. And what happened, they were then abused with Epstein and Andrew in that orgy. As a result of it, she suffered some quite physical damage, and she was bleeding and so on and so forth. And she apparently went to get some medical care, and her memory of it is fairly hazed because she said she woke up in that haze and she wasn't quite sure what had happened. But she felt that there was an incision. And she was told that she'd had a miscarriage. That's what Epstein told her, because they didn't use condoms, apparently. And what happened is she had this miscarriage, but it wasn't necessarily a miscarriage. Another person said it could have been an ectopic pregnancy. But I've interviewed some people on my show, one of the victims, somebody called Juliet, who claimed that actually one of the things that hasn't been talked about is Epstein and some medical research that he might have done. And he might have been harvesting eggs from these different victims. And that's something which also needs to be looked at. But other revelations, horrendous, as you say, Gabriella. There's discussions about sadomasochistic sex. She says Epstein developed an interest in this, and he used experiments with whips and restraints and other instruments of torture. And she would just cause so much pain that she prayed that she would black out. One of the other horrendous things about Andrew is they talked about these internet trolls and this smear campaign that apparently Andrew was doing, this desperate digital dirty tricks to dodge accountability. And apparently Andrew hired trolls and also gave out her date of birth and social security number to try and dig up the dirt on her. So much so that the police are apparently looking into those allegations. But the biggest theme, and the thing that she sort of finishes on, is saying, look, about accountability. She really wants these people to be held to account.
Well, some of those allegations are just harrowing. Now, many have argued that Prince Andrew, should have been pushed out a long time ago. It's now being reported that Prince William has been the one really calling the shots in the royal family, including this big decision to really ostracise Prince Andrew. Royal historian Andrew Lowney has claimed that Prince William is much more ruthless than his father, King Charles, and that Prince William can see the huge reputational damage that has been done. Is that your assessment too?
Oh, absolutely. It's a tsunami of scandal, isn't it? And a startling lack of contrition on the part of Prince Andrew. And apparently, exactly as you say, Prince William is ruthlessly leading efforts to strip him of his dukedom honours, his Royal Lodge access, and to shield the king from any more of this reputational damage. And again, we spoke about this on this show. We predicted this on this very show. We said it started when at the Princess Kent's, you might remember the Duchess of Kent, her basically at her funeral, where Prince Andrew was together with Fergie, and Prince William was incredibly uncomfortable. And shortly after that, it was announced that he wasn't going to be attending Christmas. And now, obviously, he's put down his titles. But basically, William is much more ruthless than his father. He's looking for the future and the damage that Andrew is doing to the monarchy. So he probably wants to take it much, much further. There are no more kid gloves. He sees the reputational rot, if you like, from Andrew's Epstein lies, and he's forcing basically this swift, clean break before it festers further.
And Andrew, Prince William is reportedly planning a major blitz in which he'll strip a series of outer royals of their titles. So what would that mean for Princess Beatrice?
Well, she's married to Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi, who's Italian noble lineage. So she could become a contessa, which probably sounds a bit better, actually. So she could become a contessa. She could do that. But certainly it's rumoured that William wants to slim down the number of princes and so on and princesses and purge, if you like, a number of those. What will then happen is that they will be left without the title. Some of the suggestions are not just about Andrew and Fergie and their daughters, but also Prince Harry and Meghan, which will obviously be quite distressing for them. That could be effectively a bit of revenge on that sort of side. But that's what happened, and it could be coming within early weeks of King William V is what he would be. And it would remove those princely titles, not just from Andrew, but as I say, from Eugenie, Beatrice, Harry, Archie, and Lilibet as well, are the suggestions.
And there are reports that Parliament is under pressure to examine what the royal family knew about Prince Andrew's links to Jeffrey Epstein. What can you tell us about this?
Yes, well, the general rule is this, Gabriella, that questions that cast reflections on the sovereign or the royal family are inadmissible in Parliament. In other words, you can't ask questions about the family, really, in either the Commons or the Lords. Now, a number of MPs are getting up and saying, look, this scandal has gone on far too long. We need to work out exactly who knew what when and have a full investigation. And also, whilst Andrew's given up his titles, he said he's not going to use them, they're not officially removed. So we need to get that sort of sorted. The website has been updated, the royal website. It's now just referred to as Prince Andrew. They no longer talk to him as the Duke of York. There's a pub not too far from me, which used to be called the Duke of York, and had a big picture of Prince Andrew up there until very recently. They've taken that down and replaced it with a more traditional picture of the Duke of York and his 10,000 men, and they're having all that sort of side. But this is what the politicians are saying. Look, enough is enough. We need to look at ways that we can actually get rid of these sort of scandalous royals on that sort of basis.
Now, according to newly disclosed documents, for over 2 decades, Prince Andrew did not pay rent while living at his Windsor residence. I mean, 2 decades. It's pretty extraordinary.
It is extraordinary, isn't it? Thrown out is what they're saying. He should be thrown out. What the property is, it's this 30-room royal lodge. It's not, when you think of a lodge, you think it's a little log hut at the end of it. It's not. It's in Windsor Great Park. I've spoken about this previously. And it spans 40 hectares within Windsor Great Park and includes the gardener's house, 6 staff cottages, and an on-site accommodation for a police officer. What happened is that under the terms of a lease, he's been living there for rent-free, effectively, what they call a peppercorn rent, which is really just a token in legal terms to make it legally binding, but that can be waived. And he's been living there for over 20 years. It's been disclosed that he was given a 75-year lease in 2003. He initially paid £1 million up front, but the condition was that he has to pay maintenance costs. And at least 7.5 million, possibly 8.5 million, have already been paid towards these extensive refurbishments. But all of these revelations that are coming out now about the 75-year ironclad lease, it obviously doesn't bode well in terms of the public image.
Absolutely not. So while all this is going on, let's look at what King Charles is doing. And he is right now focusing on duty and service amid this endless stream of embarrassment because of Prince Andrew, really. So King Charles paid an emotional visit to Manchester on Monday, visiting Heaton Park Hebrew Congregational Synagogue after that deadly attack earlier this month. But can you talk to us more about what King Charles is really doing and how he's really focusing on the community at the moment?
Yes, absolutely. He wants to put the people and the victims first. This horrendous attack on October the 2nd during Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar, basically struck across the whole nation. And he wanted to basically take the pulse of the nation and to reflect the grief and the tragedy that had happened. And he wants his focus to be on that, where he can heal the community. He can make sure we can get joined again on that sort of basis. So he wants to put duty and service first. That's what he sort of emphasized during this synagogue visit amid that sort of community tragedy. And he's absolutely desperate to get the spotlight away from the scandals of Prince Andrew. And that's what he's trying to do. Avoid more royal red faces and all these cover-ups and more revelations. They were hoping that when Andrew announced that he was going to relinquish his titles or not use them, that it would go away. But more and more stories keep coming out. And Charles is desperate, absolutely desperate to change the narrative.
Of course. Now, there's always speculation that around Meghan Markle and whether she'll return to the UK or not, and it's being suggested that she may not be returning to the UK anytime soon because she knows how unpopular she is among Brits. Now, Andrew, I'm not sure if I agree with that. I'm not sure if she does know just how unpopular she is.
You think she's blissfully unaware? She obviously hasn't watched your programme recently. It's got to be good. The reality is exactly that. This is the suggestion from a royal expert. Everybody's a royal expert these days, aren't they? Phil Dampier. What he does, he predicted that she's going to skip the UK because she's got this massive ego, and she doesn't want to be. She doesn't think that the UK likes her very much, and thinks she's only going to come back here, basically let Harry go on his own, because she's consistently ranked in the bottom of the list of favourable and popular royals, which is not very obviously not very palatable to her. So Meghan apparently, and it's all speculation from this person, won't come back. As I've discussed before, Prince Harry is desperate, if you like, to build the bridge now. And I'm delighted that he met his father, even if it was under an hour. But the emphasis there was, he said, his focus now is on his father. His father, as we know, has cancer. And his days are numbered, but we hope he'll live for as long as possible. But he recognises the fragility of that sort of side. So he does want to build that bridge. The suggestion that Meghan may not come with him would be a bit of a shock. But it'd be interesting, as you say, to see whether she's blind to those polls.
And look, finally on Meghan Markle, there are reports that she's desperate to attend Taylor Swift's wedding. What more can you tell us about that? That one doesn't surprise me.
I love it. There you go.
That one, I'm sure, is correct.
Absolutely, without doubt. So what's going to happen? Taylor Swift, as we announced on this very show, this engagement that she had to Kelsey, what's going to happen? I predict, here's a good prediction, you can hear it here first. She loves the number 13, so I reckon she'll probably go for a date like June the 13th, 2026, because 26 is obviously double 13. Apparently she's told everybody, so you can hear that here first, June the 13th, 2026, put money on it now. She recently joked that she was going to invite anybody she's ever talked to. Well, that's going to be interesting. Certainly on that list will be the Prince and Princess of Wales, who are both 43. They were amongst the millions who congratulated her when she posted on Instagram on the 26th of August that she was going to get married. And she said, you might remember Taylor Swift said, your English teacher and your gym teacher are getting married. That's what she said with a series of photos. And Swift, 35, and Kelsey, 36, even met Prince William and his children, George and Charlotte, during their Euro tour stop in London. So I'm sure that they're going to be on the list. What we're not so sure of is whether Meghan's going to be there, but she would be spitting feathers and also edible flowers if she wasn't invited. So let's see what happens.
Okay, well, that is a prediction. June 13, 2026. We'll, of course, wait and see, and then have to cross live to you over there if Meghan Markle gets her way and potentially gets an invite. Andrew Eborn, barrister and broadcaster, president of Octopus TV, thank you so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure. See you next week.
And that is Power Hour. Thank you for your company. We'll see you tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe to Sky News Australia on YouTube.